my name is Annabelle and this is my field site at Ophir Fen. I thought I'd make a little video for anyone who's interested in hearing about my thesis project or what the heck I've been up to this summer scampering around these big crazy mountains in the San Juans. So welcome to Ophir Fen. A fen is a wetland, kind of like a marsh or a bog, but the thing about fens that makes them really special is that over tens of thousands of years they accumulate layers of peat in them, which is decomposed organic matter like crushed up leaves and twigs and grasses and dirt, even some animal fossils and things like that. So they accumulate peat over time, and instead of being fed mostly by rainwater and surface water flowing over their surface, fens are actually fed by groundwater. So they rely on the water table underground, because if you don't know, while water does fall in the air via snow, rain, ice, hail, all the fun things, and flow over the surface in rivers, it also has to go somewhere in the ground. And so up here in the mountains, when it rains up high or over there in Sunlight Basin, the water will both percolate down into the mountain through the dirt and the soil, but also over the surface and into rivers. So just like how humans need water, so do all landscapes to certain varying amounts. And fens are pretty particular, this one especially, because this one is what you might consider a sick fen. In the late 1800s, when the mining industry was booming here in the San Juans, some miners thought it would be a cool idea to build a parking lot here, because there were various mines all around here. There's actually one in that valley right over there. There are none right here. So they pretty much dug up the whole fen and turned it into a parking lot, which really messed up the way water moved throughout the fen. So over time, as we humans have kind of changed the ways that we use the land right here on Ophir Pass, there's a dirt road, which is kind of like a highway that connects the town of Silverton to the town of Ophir. We have the highway here, and now people are coming up here for recreation and adventure. So they want to see beautiful landscapes as well as animals, and the only reason for both of those to be successful is for this fen itself to be healthy. So Mountain Studies Insitute has been working for the past bunch of years with a professor from Michigan named Dr. Chim there to help figure out how to fix and heal this fen. And since it's fed by groundwater, an important problem to figure out is where is the water moving and how do we re-divert water and help it kind of go in the right places to feed the plants and the animals and the different water systems in the most healthy way. So basically what's happened over time is a pretty large project, which you can see here if you can see the flags over there and some posts. Basically, Mountain Studies Institute with some amazing volunteers has put in some PVC pipes, which are groundwater wells. They're essentially like little peepholes into what's happening underground, and they're placed at certain depths, and then when you put a tape measure into them and see where the water line is down there, you can see how deep the water table is. So we have about 10 years of historic data, and one of my parts of my project this summer is getting a really in-depth look at what the groundwater table is doing this summer, especially in a drought year. So basically they have groundwater wells, and then they've replanted a bunch of grasses and sedges to try to help regrow the vegetation. And if you look over there, way over in the back, the grass is super lush where it's been successful. And part of that is because another thing Mountain Studies has done is fill in ditches with more soil that fits this environment, as well as putting in some small little dams out of wood or aspen birch to help slow water movement downhill, because this fen is a sloping fen, which means it has a slope angle of approximately 20-30 degrees, which is pretty steep, and that makes water want to move fast. So part of my other project this summer is trying to map whether the fen itself, Ophir Fen, is remediating or digesting metals that are moving through it, because what happens is when water comes in both from the surface and from groundwater, it interacts with the rocks underneath, and the rocks in this region are volcanic rocks that have been highly altered through time via contact with water. When certain elements interact with other ones, especially water, it kind of like fizzes and creates a new element, or a new mineral, which is called alteration, and miners love to mine it because we humans love to wear jewelry made of fancy altered minerals. But anyways, and I'm nerding out about that. Those ions that are interacting with the water and the rocks, they get digested by the water and flow through. They get picked up by it, because essentially when the water and the rock interact, they make an acid. And then that water that's pretty acidic, some of it has a pH of about 4.8, I've measured this summer, will enter into the fen and of course eventually end up downhill. So what I'm trying to figure out is whether from kind of the top to the bottom of the fen, how is the acidity changing, how's the pH, we call it, and how are the species of elements, or the kinds of metals, which are basically just charged ions, what is their distribution, what's here, how much of it is there a trend of change as you move from top to bottom? Because if perchance Ophir Fen is doing a good job at digesting metals and water that leaves the fen is cleaner than water that comes in, that could be super helpful both for protecting fens in the future, because unfortunately humans tend to degrade wetlands and mess around with them because they just look kind of like maybe boring little places to some people. Not to me at all. But it could be helpful for future conservation efforts, but also here in the San Juans, where the legacy of mining is extensive and pervasive and impacting all people, especially people who rely on water, which is everyone. These mountains house the headwaters. They're like the water towers of the entire western seaboard. Water from here eventually flows, if it can make it and it's not diverted, to California and all the farms over there, and LA and all the cities, and it goes through, I think the number is 12 million people use this water. I know 6 major Native American tribes have rights. Huge downstream agriculture, some's diverted to the San Luis Valley, which is Colorado's largest agricultural valley. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is this water is important, and as drought becomes more and more frequent, on the order of between every 5 and 10 years to every 2 to 4 years, water is going to become more precious. And also, the concentration of stuff that's loaded into that water will increase. So when there's less water, but there's still the same amount of stuff moving into it, the water is going to be, in a way, it's more loaded, which here it's kind of loaded with metals, some of which are totally safe to consume or be around, but others you don't really want to be ingesting high quantities of. So trying to figure out whether wetlands like this fen or other fens, if they are doing a good job at taking up metals and holding them there, either via their physical structure or their chemistry of how plants uptake metals, and the peat maybe holds it in, then that could be super helpful going forward for a process called bioremediation, which is essentially using biologic processes to clean up environments by remediating, which means like uptaking and concentrating levels of things that really just aren't great for humans. So this is Ophir Fen. My project, to summarize, is characterizing the groundwater hydrology and chemistry in 4 alpine wetlands of the San Juans. This here is a disturbed sloping iron fen named Ophir Fen, and it's so beautiful. We're at about 11,500 feet right now, and life sure is good up here. Thanks for watching.